A very good afternoon to you again, Levi. Thank you so much for staying with us. So we've seen that picture, that Ekurhuleni picture. What do we make of it? Particularly because we know those three top parties are the DA, the EFF, and the ANC. Of course, we know who wants to go into coalition with who, or technically who wants to, be in partnership with them. But looking at the Ekurhuleni municipality, what's needed there?
Well, I think it's important to note that amongst the 4 metros that were run through a coalition in the previous elections, Ekurhuleni had the symptoms of stability. And the ANC had gone into a coalition with smaller parties at the time, and they were able to turn things around, and there was an element of stability. Now, if they had to follow the national framework, like the pronouncements that we've actually had, we might find a situation where if the DA is ready to communicate, to enter into a relationship with the ANC, that can still be possible. Maybe the ANC can still come with into a coalition with the EFF, and that can still be possible. So it will require those people that are supposed to ensure that there is stability and leadership in Ekurhuleni to go deeper, select people based on the projections of the future, and ensuring that there is permanent stability in that metro.
All right, Levi, thank you so much for that. Now, let's get analysis. We now joined via Zoom by political analyst Ibrahim Fakir, and he's going to, just join my conversation here with Levi here on studio. Ibrahim, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
All right, Ibrahim, now, we're less than 2 hours to go before President Cyril Ramaphosa declares the local government elections 2021. What are some of the key things you think that the president should mention, during these elections? We know highly contested elections. We've got 68 hung councils. Of course, leading up to the elections, just, quite concerning utterances made, leveled against the IEC, as well as just how some of the things have been conducted up to so far. But critically, the turnout, of these elections. So just very, briefly give us that overview in terms of what he should be saying, what South Africans expect him to say tonight.
Well, I think the president's going to have to take an approach which is really quite calm, firstly, and secondly, reassuring, in the sense that, though many people didn't turn out, it is perfectly within their democratic right not to have done so, and there ought to be no repercussions in the sense that people didn't turn out. So before we headed into the elections, you would remember, people made accusations about the credibility of the IEC. That was one. The second was people put out misinformation on the interwebs and on social media that if you vote for a small party, it would be a wasted vote. And most crucially, what people were saying is that if you don't vote, you lose the right to complain. Now, let's just put this in perspective. That many people didn't turn out, it's not because they are simply apathetic. I think it's pretty much evident now that people didn't turn out because of the crisis of credibility in institutions, and that there was a major crisis of confidence in the political parties themselves. So that's the first point to remember. Second is that, it is a great responsibility to vote, and I think it is also a great virtue to vote. But people have the ethical responsibility to decide whether they feel they want to or they don't. In this case, they felt, well, for whatever reason, they didn't. That does not mean that they lose any of their rights, particularly the right to moan, the right to complain, the right to expect responsive government from those who are in fact now elected, right? Even though it's by a smaller number. So the president does need to send the message that irrespective, and however the councils are composed, and whatever the composition of the different councils, and whatever permutation of coalition, they are representative now as governments of all the people who live within their localities, within their municipalities. They are not only representatives of their parties, nor are they only representatives of those people who voted for them. And the responsibility of all of those who are elected behoves a responsiveness to all of the citizens who live in that area. And I think that's vital to understand. Second, I think the very important message for the president to send, but this is probably not the time, is that irrespective of how the councils are composed and in whichever permutations they are, the responsibility of oversight is now going to be fundamental. Because let's remember, councillors are elected, sure, but the councillors themselves are not the people who, deliver rain and deliver water and put the piping and make sure the electricity works, or the ones who come out and clean the verges on the sides of the streets, or make sure the roads are intact, or get people and go-go's onto the indigence grant register. They facilitate those things. But in facilitating those things, they need to navigate the processes of council. They need to oversee the bureaucrats. They need to extract level of accountability from those people who are responsible for actually doing those things. Now, when you consider the way in which those onerous responsibilities are exercised, then you think more carefully about how the coalitions should be composed and which permutation of coalition is best going to give us a result of that. My understanding, and perhaps Levi and I differ a little bit on this, is that I would prefer that there are bigger parties which form coalitions, because you are then negotiating with one partner, number one. Number two, even if you are not of like mind, particularly if you are distant, what you need is a coalition agreement around which you can cohere, and that coalition agreement would have certain outcomes and principles that you commonly agree on. And those outcomes could be things like how much money you would ring fence for social development, how much you would ring fence for economic development, which portfolios would attract what portion of the budget, how are you going to ensure repair, maintenance of the infrastructure, and so on, to ensure that there's effective services and the municipality fulfills its mandate of social and economic development. So that for me would be the key issues that need to be reinforced and to come out tonight.
Thanks, Fakir, for that comprehensive response.